think we're live. Yep. Hey everyone, this is Paul Gale from paulgalenetwork.com, and thank you for joining me today for this. Well, we don't exactly know what we're getting ourselves into, right? But this is Capcom's countdown that's been going on for a week now, and the timer is set to end in 10 minutes at 9 p.m. Pacific time. Speculation is that this is Street Fighter related, and I have something special for these next 10 minutes regarding Street Fighter because this is my favorite franchise in all of gaming. Well, one of my top three, I should say more accurately, but one of my top two longest that I've been a fan of, the other being Mario, and regarding my top three in general, that would be Mario, The Legend of Zelda, and Street Fighter. And I thought that regardless of whether this ends up being Street Fighter 6 or not, I have something to prepare just in case. And that is Street Fighter 5 ideas that I had back in the day that I thought was really cool, but now actually still holds some relevance because of how Street Fighter 5 was handled by Capcom. This actually works really well for Street Fighter 6. If you're a fan of Street Fighter for a long time, you know that it took Capcom quite a while to count to 3, right? And there were many games along the way that kind of deviated before they officially went to 3, with the likes of the Alpha series and Versus games and crossovers and so forth. And then after 3, it took a while, a good 9 years or so, until, well, and that's from Third Strike actually, until they got to Street Fighter 4. But 4 didn't advance the story after 3. 4 ends up taking place somewhere between 2 and 3. And then several years later, we got 5. But 5, once again, doesn't take place after 3. It takes place a little after 4. So you go, Street Fighter, Alpha, the 2 series, 4, 5, 3, and then maybe Street Fighter 6 will take place after. Again, we don't know for sure if this countdown, which is 8 minutes away, is going to be Street Fighter 6, but I wrote a series of articles back in the day, a good 10 years ago actually, September 23rd, 2012, you could see here, and they were on ideas for Street Fighter 5, how I would pitch it. And I had a friend, Joe Danos, take my artistic design and brought it to, and he created the stages, the characters doing the movements that I wanted to, and it turned out really nice, so credit to his artwork. I give him credit here in my original article and also on my Twitter page that I just dropped today, kind of in anticipation of what could be going on tonight. And I want to break this article out because even if tonight isn't about Street Fighter 6, I think this would still be kind of fun to talk about. And if tonight's not about 6, this video will act as its own kind of thing and maybe draw some interest in what Street Fighter 6 could be. But let's go ahead. Maybe I'll read it word for word. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Paul Gale Network is a huge fan of Street Fighter and of Capcom's, so it was decided to come up with a what-if scenario involving the prestigious franchise's next numbered entry. I'll reiterate that this is not a real screenshot of what Capcom's working on, but rather a PGN exclusive original look with the art handled by Joe Danos and the concept by me. I've always been supportive of each Street Fighter game that Capcom makes from the very beginning. The time that the Alpha series was introduced with a new art direction, and instead of being an opportunity to count to 3, it ended up being a prequel. That was more than fine in my book. When the Street Fighter 3 series finally came to and was radically different, with things like an almost entirely different roster, different approach to music, super moves, introduction of parrying, and removal of air blocking, once again, that series was still welcomed. Not by everyone, but I liked it. That brought us to Street Fighter 4, and the first time Capcom went with 3D polygonal models in a main entry in the series, not including the EX saga. And once again, though it had its own gameplay differences, None of what was done to the formula damaged the game in any way. I think it was the perfect move for Capcom to make. And here we are in 2012, 10 years ago, with Capcom celebrating Street Fighter's 25th anniversary. Now, actually, 35th, right? And us fans not knowing what's in store for the series' future, past Tekken Cross Street Fighter, which, by the way, we actually still have not gotten. Isn't that wild? We got Street Fighter Cross Tekken, but not the other. So to have a little fun, this is a fan-made pitch to what I'd like Street Fighter V to be, illustrated by Joe. Here's the first image that I came up with. Let's see what it looks like when I blow it up here. Okay, that's not going to quite open up. And that's okay. As long as you can see it. Yeah, I guess you can still see a good amount of the image. That's what's most important, even though it's not opening up in the way I thought it would. Street Fighter V, well, now Street Fighter 6, Ryu versus Ken. You can see right here that my direction was to go back before we knew that 5 was officially going to be a thing to a 2D hand-drawn art style. Either 2D hand-drawn, which kind of is what we got out of Dragon Ball FighterZ eventually, or a return to kind of a glorified 2D pixel approach, you know. But this was an idea of mine, like I said, 10 years ago. So the fact that someone else in Bandai Namco ended up doing something not too dissimilar with their art direction is pretty cool, and shows that this kind of thing was always possible, right? Back to 2D, hand-drawn art and animation. It's a tedious, arguably more difficult process to achieve, but with over a decade passing since SF3 Third Strike, it'd be wonderful to see what Capcom could do once more with this approach. Distinctly make the game take place after Street Fighter 3. You could see with Ryu's hair a little gray showing. With Ken's, you could see his black roots beginning to show, because remember, he actually dyes it blonde. And with both fighters, their black belts having white scuff marks. What happens in time to black belts? That's actually how they make a lot of high quality black belts. They have white on the inside and black is wrapped on the outside. And as it gets worn out more and more, the white begins to show, kind of showing that your martial arts journey is never fully complete once you become a black belt. You know, you kind of undo it and relearn, right? Original stages for each character. I've always been in favor of each fighter having his or her own stage, and in this case you can see that Ryu's is in front of the classic waterfall he trains under, with Master Goken's old dojo up in the background. So we've got the dojo in the background right here, and this is that down below area that you've seen in Udon's comics of Street Fighter, for instance. A camera that zooms out slightly. In Street Fighter V, I like it that if players 1 and 2 went back into their respective corners, the screen would zoom out slightly and allow for the stage to now have up to 25% more horizontal distance. You know in Super Smash Bros., as an example, how it zooms out quite dramatically? Not that much, but like I said, only by 25% more horizontal distance being added by the camera zooming out appropriately so. A new gameplay introduction would be born because of this maximum distance. That'd be a dashing forward technique by hitting forward twice that would, in a half second's time, have the fighter move 12.5% across the screen, thus cutting the distance. You see, in the Street Fighter 3 series, we actually got longer stages, but we still had the same amount of max distance between characters. By this proposal having a little bit of a wider range, this changes up the dynamic between fireballs, close distance fighters, etc., makes certain moves more or less useful, but it doesn't dramatically change the mobility permanently, because you do have a dash that does cut 12.5% across the screen. So when you're at that max distance, within a couple of dashes, you get back to being, you know, in a normal max distance comparable to old Street Fighter games. This new move would be uniquely handled per character and would be able to be pulled off once every 16.5 seconds, which is what the blue bar represents beneath the yellow health bar, to avoid a run fest and risk changing the SF formula too much, but at the same time, if used close enough to your opponent, could be the starting point of a combo. This is what I referred to as that blue bar. And I chose 16.5 seconds because that doesn't make it too much of a dasher of a fighting game, and it still keeps that balance and that flow of Street Fighter not being necessarily like a versus title, like in Marvel versus Capcom, X-Men versus Street Fighter type game, right? Which, by the way, it is 9 o'clock. Let me refresh this. Countdown. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, this should be going live any minute now. So I apologize if you were into that read of mine. I will get back to it in a moment. Let's see. I don't want to risk not having that up live, you know, but at the same time, I would like to continue reading this Street Fighter 6 proposal. Okay, we don't have anything yet. It is still 9. I'll refresh in a moment. No more invisible walls. That's another thing that I was trying to convey as important to me back when I wrote this. If both players go to the opposite ends of a stage, the camera will zoom out at a max of 25% distance as stated earlier, but I have a solution to end the invisible wall problem. If both players go to the furthest left or furthest right of a stage, and that's art that's stage specific and makes sense to be there to act as a barrier. And Ryu's stage going to the left eventually brings you to a boulder that takes up the whole height of the screen. Can't be jumped on, but can be bounced off, and acts like a normal invisible wall. So you know you get to stages and you jump off to the left and jump off. Certain characters have that ability, like Chun-Li for instance. You're not jumping off of nothing. You could see the physical boulder in this case that you would jump off of, but now gives you something to look at that makes sense. Let's take a look again. Let's refresh again. It's 9:01. Okay. Still nothing. All right. We'll keep going. We'll keep going. Multi-tiered stages. We don't need every stage to have more than one plane to fight on, but in the case of Ryu's, which also answers the question of what's on the furthest right of his fighting arena, if Ken were to be backed up enough to the right, the stage would end in a cliff. The fighters can't jump off of it at will, not trying to make this like Super Smash Bros., but rather only at the edge will then cause both players to move below onto another level to fight on. What's down below is more of the bigger picture that is the whole environment you're playing in, and this time, when pushed to the farthest right, will be a large tree, once again just acting like a wall. This extended section of Ryu's stage doesn't have to scroll on for long either. It could be just a normal screen's distance width plus another 25% of walking space, and that's it. So my idea, and they ended up kind of having, walls that you could destroy and then hop into a new Street Fighter environment, but this idea, obviously 10 years ago, was that if you went on a new fighting plane and you dropped below, this would be a new shorter distance environment perhaps to fight back and forth between. So, when you're thinking about, do I want to engage in that stage's lower section? Well, what type of fighter are you? Are you a charged fighter that has a little less room to travel, horizontally, like M. Bison, for instance, or E. Honda? Does the lack of space hurt you or help you? Do you want to try to initiate combat down there or stay up above? So just kind of an idea that I was experimenting with. The super combo meter is back and is broken into 4 parts. A similar setup as seen in the past where levels 1 through 3 allow you to perform EX moves, but building it up by delivering enough attacks to your opponent to 4 sets it on fire and is now when you can unleash your super move. The Ultra Custom Combo Meter is both new and old mixed into one and is representative through the circle gauge with a number in the middle. When you take damage, your circular gauge will fill up. The first level gives you the ability to pull off a 1-second custom combo, comparable to a focus attack in Street Fighter 4. The second level gives you a 2-second custom combo, and the third 3 seconds. At this point, if you've saved up, if you save the gauge to reach 3, you'll be able to pull off a quick series of moves reminiscent of those introduced in Street Fighter Alpha 2. I've also developed the idea that you'll no longer lose what you've built up in the custom combo meter when going into a second round. Since it'll take longer to save up past 3 to get to 5, the gauge will remain going into other rounds, with a stipulation. Any fractions toward the next number will be rounded down. So if you're at 3.8 and you go to the second round, as such, you'll start off flat 3. Finally, the fourth level gives you 4 seconds of custom combo time, and the fifth allows you to either get 5 seconds of custom combo time or the ability to pull off your ultra combo. If your question in all this is it possible then to pull off an ultra combo in round 1? Yes, for after you reach the third level, in addition to receiving damage building it up, blocking will as well. Your feedback is important and always appreciated. If you like the artwork that Joe Danos provided, be sure to click on his name and visit his art gallery to see more of what he's done. Also, if you're a fan of this whole project that PGN has put together, share your words both here and with Capcom. I have ideas for other stages as well, so if you're curious what the rest of my vision is made of, we could definitely get the ball rolling with this project. Thank you, Hadouken. So, I'm going to go back to here and refresh because it still looks like it's not live, and I was pretty sure that 9 o'clock was it. Unless if it's going to be 10. Maybe that's the case. But I had a lot of fun breaking down the whole custom combo meter because I was a fan of the custom combo, specifically in Street Fighter Alpha 2. I thought that was very user-friendly for new people. I love traditional super moves. I thought that they were really well designed initially in Street Fighter, or I should say Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, but by the time they got into Alpha, that's when they really hit their jam. In Alpha 2, having a couple different super moves each were great. I also like the idea of, parrying continuing to exist though. Super moves, building up the normal fashion. Ultra moves, having that bar not get lost going into second rounds, but like I said, just rounding down so it's not overpowered. Once you get past 3, blocking alone will help you get to 4 and 5 in addition to that. So like I said, you can still achieve an ultra combo in round 1. It's just more likely to occur in round 2 or 3. Do you want to use it for an ultra combo or a custom combo? It kind of delivers a lot. So right here you have a similar strategy and a newly implemented gameplay design, and you have this stage that has a little bit of layer of depth to it. So that adds an extra layer of complexity, more visual design, distinct visuals that are linked per character, because I am a big fan of each character getting his or her own stage and their own music that accompanies it. That's my favorite type of Street Fighter, and for that matter, nothing quite like Street Fighter Alpha 2 stages in my opinion. That was probably the best design per character since like the original Super Street Fighter 2. And, of course, now 10 years later, Street Fighter 5 with all of its DLC has a lot of stages, but still not necessarily every character having his or her own stage. They brought back classic stages, which is great, but initially in the game, you could be, including in 4, in a different stage for a different character, and then just kind of tune the music to him or her, but it's not quite the same. So that's one thing that I would like to get back. If you're enjoying this stream so far, thank you for watching. I'm going to go ahead and continue. And if you have any comments, go ahead and drop one. I'll be happy to interrupt partway through and then get to you and then get back to this stuff. So that was the Ryu versus Ken part. I'm going to go into my next one. This was actually Rainbow Mika versus Zangief. I'm reading this, by the way, some of this for the first time in quite a while, so I'm kind of having fun here too and seeing, what have my writing style has changed in the last decade and how do I critique myself. It was 7 days ago that in this article, Paul Gale Network presented the first details and screenshot of what Street Fighter V could look like if Capcom went back to its 2D roots. Most gamers responded positively to the story, saying that they'd be in favor of Street Fighter once again going to 2D hand-drawn art and enjoying some of the new gameplay additions that I came up with. There were also some of you that said that going back to sprites for a series that finally made polygonal 2D fighters work would be a step back for Capcom, but it was almost unanimous that art on display by Joe Danos looked great, felt real, and made you say, wow, I want to play in that stage. It's why I'm happy today to let you know that Joe created yet one more great piece, this time depicting Rainbow Mika and Zangief. And, I will read it as well, because that's kind of fun. But before I even go into it, there are some things I just remember, like visual identity per character. Zangief, USSR, Russia, right? We've got some look in the past here that's very Russian-esque. We've got some nostalgia throwback to Zangief training with bears. We've got a funny little bear over here with like a broken arm and a bandage and a little stick. You have clear signs of cold. You've got snow. Imagine that footsteps could be in the snow and moving around, and with more advanced technology and greater CPUs and GPUs. Especially, this was 10 years ago that I created this. Like nowadays, it's even further removed. You could pull off some cool stuff with trekking in the snow, right? Let's hop on. Let's continue. In this picture, you see that since Rainbow Mika is a little older, she's gone the ponytail route instead of her old pigtail look. However, still parts in the middle giving her that M she's known for. The remainder of her look hasn't changed too much, but it's just meant to show that time does go by in the SF universe. With Zangief, his model is a little less bulky as represented in the past because he was born in 1956 after all, making him 56 years old, which by the way, now would be 66. He's also gotten just a little bit gray here and there. And you can see little spots of gray here, and mass, the look of an older bodybuilder, does go down a bit. One of the goals with stage design is handling each one as personal to its respective character as possible. Here you see Saint Basil's Cathedral in the background, long-time building of Russia's, and the fighters on top of a snowy mountain. Since this is Zangief's stage and he's known for training with bears, we've got 3 in the image, including one that's a bit beaten up. To top off this new hypothetical engine of Capcom's, we've got advanced lighting to show that's shown from the fire, providing continuously changing shadows for what's happening in front of it, and a new particle system that allows for the snow to fall in various patterns, even being able to be kicked up from the surface and moved around thanks to the fighter's movements. If you like the work that Joe Danos has done this time around, be sure to check out his DeviantArt profile. Stay tuned for our next installment of Street Fighter V. Thank you. Hadouken! So, like I said, I had a lot of fun with this, and I'm very passionate about Street Fighter. Street Fighter and me, 1987, has gone throughout my whole life being into video games and into martial arts. I've got a question. Just found your channel. What karate style do you practice? I'm just about to talk about that conveniently. Shotokan Karate. I have trained in Shotokan Karate since 2002, and that wasn't my first martial art, but that's when I particularly began training in Shotokan Karate. And these days, actually, as of spring 2020, I'm teaching at my former university, and I'm in charge of the Shotokan Karate department, Taekwondo department, and Tai Chi Chuan department. So those are the classes that I teach for my old university. But yeah, as I was saying just a moment ago, I began martial arts training myself in 1987 when I was 4. That's also when I began playing video games when I was 4. That's when Street Fighter came out in 1987 when I was 4. So this summer, as I turn 39, I will have been training in martial arts, playing video games, and playing Street Fighter for 35 years. And this franchise is celebrating its 35th anniversary. So that to me is a pretty big deal, pretty cool thing to have drawn parallels with my whole life. And that's why I'm passionate about martial arts, and Street Fighter has been a good participant in propelling that fandom, propelling that love, If we go into the next portion, This is Street Fighter 5, which is 6. Remy versus Guile. This one has a lot of fun because I got to show off some of my story ideas. Polygon Network first showed you what Ryu and Ken could look like in Street Fighter V if Capcom went back to its 2D roots. In Ryu's stage, right here, and in this follow-up article, we gave you a look at Rainbow Mika versus Zangief in the latter stage. Today, thanks once again to the great artwork of Joe Danos, my vision of Ken's stage and Remy versus Guile in it are realized. I chose Ken because, well, Ken's stage because he's one of my favorite characters, right up there with Ryu. Sorry, I say Ryu once in a while, and it's totally okay because I grew up with Ryu before Ryu, so to me I interchange them. But this is Ken's stage, and you can see that Ken's stage, this is his dojo that you see, the wood floor and the backgrounds, and we're fighting, we're training, we're battling the computer, the fellow human opponent, even online opponent, whomever, inside Ken's dojo. That's on his property with the mansion in the background. So you're traveling in the dojo back and forth, and you see in the background some time has passed since Street Fighter 3, and you've got Mel and Eliza right here. Mel's like 10 years old or so, assuming that this is 5 years past Street Fighter 3 and its release. Since Eliza and Julia, which is Guile's wife, are sisters, we've got her over here with Guile and her daughter, and we've got Guile and Remy fighting. And then the Guile and Remy scenario is a very important one, and I'm going to go into that breakdown right now. There's a lot going on in this image, so here's the breakdown. Let's do a really quick refresh on the countdown, and the countdown is still not up, so I think it's going to be a 10 o'clock one, so we're going to have to come back for that, but we'll continue with this. We wanted to preserve Remy's look, but update him slightly, so his hair is a bit shorter and his sleeves are rolled up. Though cosmetic, since the game does take place roughly 5 years after Third Strike, it's fairly commonplace for age to bring change, and in this case, our young French fighter has matured a bit. With Guile, much of what made him the classic American hero is the same, but he's sporting a 5 o'clock shadow, and his flat top is just slightly less groomed to reflect that he too is getting a little older. The background is a very important part to piece because, beginning with a now 10-year-old Mel that's training with his mom and Ken's wife, Eliza. If you look closely, Mel's got the same headband coloring that he had in SF3's ending, but now bandana style like Ryu's, and his gi is orange to reflect the orange shirt we've seen him in the past. Wants to be like Dad, but a little bit different. Off to the right, we now have an 18-year-old Amy, who's Guile's daughter with wife Julia, and next to her in the pink, Guile's wife Julia. That's what I was mentioning earlier. By the way, there's a Ken statue with Ken standing by it over there, and I have a fun part for that. I remember it now. As for why they are in this stage, is because Ken's wife and Guile's wife are sisters, and this is Ken and Eliza's 10th wedding anniversary party, as can be seen by the banner hanging from Ken's mansion. Street Fighter 2 and 3, 5 years removed between 3 and, well, now 6, another 5 years removed. They got married at the end of 2, so 10th anniversary, right? And that makes sense. Another bit of fun that we included was that Ken is actually in his own stage next to the statue of himself when not fighting. And thanks to the way that Joe drew the walkway from the pool to the dojo, a fun thought is that when Ken actually is chosen as a playable character in his own stage, a quick few-second introduction will take place in which he runs down the path towards the screen and jumps into fighting frame. Street Fighter is known for characters having cool actions before a fight, sometimes opponent-specific, and I thought it'd be time for something fresh like this to take place. You see, so Ken is over here. If you choose Ken and go to Ken's stage, he would go from here in his own stage's background, run through this path and hop up and come on, begin. And if you're not playing as Ken in his own stage, he would be in the background posing, moseying with guests and stuff like that, maybe jumping into the pool, wow, whatever, right? Cool stuff like that. And now it's time to make something official. In Gale Network's vision of Street Fighter V, Capcom has agreed to make Remy, Guile's son. In the ending of Street Fighter II, we saw an approximately aged 8-year-old Amy with mom welcoming back their dad and husband, respectively. Since we know that Guile left them to take on M. Bison and avenge Charlie's death, the story with Remy and his deceased sister is that while Guile was on Air Force duty for a mission in France, 8 years before marrying Julia, yet still seeing her off and on, he met a woman, had a relationship with her, and had a son in Remy. The story I'm writing is that he stayed active with this woman and Remy for about 3 years, and it was on his last visit to them that the woman became pregnant, and that child eventually became Remy's younger sister. That we know has been dead on ice thanks to Remy's ending in Street Fighter III. During one of Guile's missions after that last visit to France, he suffered from massive head trauma, erasing what he had known for the past 3 years. His friend and mentor Charlie didn't know about this relationship in France either, so Remy was now fatherless and his young sister never even met her dad. Guile's only knowledge of love then would be Julia, so they got married and in 5 years' time had Amy. That takes us up to Street Fighter II with Amy being 8, Guile's unknown other daughter being 13, and Remy, the forgotten son, being 16. This now fits particularly well with Street Fighter III because Remy looks like he's about 21 in this game. And with Street Fighter V taking place 5 years after Street Fighter III, because remember, SF4 actually happens between 2 and 3, Guile's daughter Amy is 18, and Remy, who's an active participant in the tournament trying to find Guile and get answers, is 26. Guile skipped the SF3 tournament because after SF2 ended, he went back to being a family man. However, him getting involved with this new battle is because of an interaction he had with Rose. She met him once and opened his mind into seeing that he had other family and that his son actually was in the last tournament and is in this one as well, trying to find him. This was my massive attempt to make the Street Fighter franchise and its story kind of more fleshed out, because Street Fighter actually has a great story, and if you ever have the opportunity to read the Street Fighter comics by Udon, they are a terrific read. They really do a great job. I love that group over there. And even aside from that, just the base story of Street Fighter, like if you go through the endings and whatnot, it is pretty deep. It's just never explored in great depth in the games, but there are a lot of spiderweb-like crossovers between characters. A lot of people know of Dan Hibiki and him trying to train with Ryu and getting shunned off because of going for the wrong reasons, and his father Sagat, or his father with Sagat, and the revenge of Sagat and Dan, and the link between Sagat and Ryu. We all know that, and Master Goken, and all of this stuff. It's actually pretty deep. Now, what Capcom ended up doing was, make a pretty good story in Street Fighter V that later got a little bit more fleshed out. But I think now's the time to, well, I should say not the time because it happened, but now's the opportunity, or the drive should be there to really go bigger on story, because you have fans that continuously purchase Street Fighter games for that fighting game nature of it, but you also have a lot of people that like a little bit more out of a fighting game. And this is one of the things that I think Mortal Kombat has done really well. They experimented with, not Injustice, before Injustice, DC versus MK, and then with Mortal Kombat, which was 9, and X, which is 10, and 11, and they got better and better. And Street Fighter, they started to have more intros and outros, some animation, hand-drawn, 2D art. They've been doing it for a long time, incorporated voice acting, and by the time we got to 5, more of a cinematic approach. Make 6 take place further and have this kind of in-depth storytelling. And this part of Remy was like something that I was particularly proud of when I was coming up with these 4 articles. We're almost done. We've got one more to go, and this was a fun read, so I hope you've been entertained as well throughout this time. I wanted to tie in and officially make part of canon Remy being Guile's son, because who exactly was he mad at? Who did he have that abandonment to? they never officially go on, say, Guile, but this is how it could happen. And that whole layered structure where I was coming up with, well, he was in France and he had some of the amnesia thing, mind wipe, boom, 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 going back and forth, never having met the daughter, recollection of this and that. Why do Remy's moves look a little bit similar to Guile? And it's just an idea, but it was fun. That wraps up this week's Street Fighter V project, but know that there's definitely a whole lot more to come. Check out Joe Danos' DeviantArt profile for more of what this great artist is capable of, for he will be responsible for future installments of my vision as well. What did you think of Ken's stage, the art, the fighters, and the story development that I added to the mix? I hope to make Street Fighter fans the world over and Capcom proud. Hadouken! Or Sonic Boom. And finally, the next one, the last one. I still have other ideas, but article-wise, this was the last one, November 7th. Let's see, how long did it take to go through these? The first one with Ryu versus Ken was September 23rd, and then we went September 30th, a week later, October 11th, a little bit later, and then close to a month later with this last one, November 7th, 2012. So not quite a full 10 years ago, but yeah, pretty close. For those that are seeing Paul Gale Network Street Fighter V project for the first time, take a peek at the 3 links up above. For in addition to being original takes excellently illustrated by Joe Danos, the articles also shed light on some gameplay ideas that I've developed. Here we have Q versus Akuma. That being said, Joe, the Green Knight 24, just finished the latest addition to this SFV effort, and it's of Q versus Akuma in Q's stage. Once again, this is all applicable totally for Street Fighter 6. Q is a mysterious character that first made his appearance in Street Fighter 3, and though we don't know much about him, we know that he's a bit of a detective for the cause of good, so we made his stage a lair monitoring station where he keeps tabs on different events that have taken place /are taking place in the Street Fighter universe. Here you have kind of a Batman-esque lair, right? And we've got like a monitoring station, different monitors. These would have images of different fights going on in the world right now in Street Fighter 6, and some flashes of images from past Street Fighter games, past battles. Maybe Q was there and he witnessed the presumable death of Gouken by Akuma, and we see a little bit of that fade in and out. Maybe he was there for Charlie's death originally from M. Bison, or we see a little glimpse of just an iconic old school Street Fighter stage, Brazil, Blanca versus Ken, or something like that, right? Anything. Let's continue. It's kind of fun. As your match goes on in this stage, different screens light up and show short clips of some of the most pivotal events in Street Fighter history. For instance, you'll see M. Bison killing Charlie, Chun-Li's father, Dorai, in peril at Shadowlu's hands, Dan's father, Go Hibiki, fighting Sagat until the former's death, and even Guile holding an almost 3-year-old Remy in his arms, since PGN has now officially made him Guile's son from a previous relationship he had while in France. The idea here is to show that Q has been around for years, trying to help and piece certain puzzles together. If you look closely, in perhaps the larger version of this image, you'll see that we made Akuma have a gray streak in his hair that goes from above the ear to the top. Yes, he's still the same demonic badass you've come to know and love, as you can see that he's still capable of pulling off the Raging Demon, but is naturally getting older. Another fine attention to detail that Mr. Danos was able to highlight is the ground's granite-like reflective properties. As with all of the other subtle features that made Street Fighter V show off its graphical prowess, this element is also an impressive one that reflects the characters and their movements. And we did our best to get in some kind of granite right here and show a little bit of reflection going on. Let me see. Just got in. Welcome. Love the Twitter DMs. Not good at fighting games, so would prefer the reveal to be anything else, but hope you get a new Street Fighter game to play. Thank you. You know what? If this is Street Fighter, I'll definitely be happy. If you're not a big fighting game fan, hopefully you enjoy it for what it is. If it's not Street Fighter, I'm such a big fan of Capcom at large. I love Resident Evil. I love uh, Mega Man. I'm a big fan of Darkstalkers, which of course is also, a fighting game property. Um, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, another good, franchise. So Dino Crisis, bring me that. Onimusha, Capcom does a lot, and I'd be okay with almost anything that they're going to show off. But thank you. Hope you're having fun with this too. Um, I think that was the final part. Yeah, that was the final part of the stage. But then now we get into a little bit more of a complexity when it comes to some of the gameplay system. And this is kind of trying to answer people's questions. How do you come up with something new to such a revered franchise that at this point was 25 years old and is now 35 years old? What do you do to bring in, a casual audience that's not too intimidating, but ensure that the hardcore that have been gradually improving their skills over and over again throughout the years, something compelling for them? And this is kind of what I came up with. Finally, a question that many people have been asking, and that's whether or not a pairing system can exist yet again in a Street Fighter game. And the answer to that is yes, but it's got a twist to it. You could parry, but have to have on hand one filled up circle in the ultra custom combo meter and one filled up block in the super custom one filled up block in the super combo meter. You press 2 punch and 1 kick button, or 2 kick and 1 punch button, and forward at the same time, which allows you to parry 1 move or 1 second's worth of attacks. If you're successful, and with each followed parry, it's only a push forward and not the 3 buttons every time. You not only take no damage, but also receive a little bit of a life back. So instead of just forward at the same time, forward and the 3 buttons just once, followed by just forward. So a little bit more difficult to pull off, but also a little bit more reward. So it doesn't necessarily abuse the fact that like pairing is just so easy. It takes a little bit to get used to in the beginning. Long-term, high-end tournament level, this is something that you see a lot. And plus, using that combo gauge, right? I will read that in just a moment. Let me continue with this. And you get a little bit of life back. Yeah, that was the last important thing. You could then see that if you have 4 or 5 circles filled up in the ultra custom combo meter and all 4 blocks filled up in the super combo meter, then if you're low on life and are quick enough to react, you could save yourself by deflecting 4 or 5 seconds respectively worth of a combo, super move, etc. from your opponent and get back a decent amount of life for parrying each hit. This makes the game complex enough for masters to truly excel at, but not something that lesser skilled Street Fighter players have to become proficient in order to play and have fun. It's my attempt at the perfect balance between old and new. What gamers loved about Street Fighter Alpha, Street Fighter Alpha 3, Street Fighter 3, and Street Fighter 4. Write your comments below on the art that Joe created, my ideas, and anything you wanted to talk about. Your opinion is appreciated. And just know that more stages are on their way. Thank you. Hadouken. So I didn't end up creating more stages with Joe from the art perspective, but I did come out with them in a layout, so they're just not up, but they can always be revisited. Let me see. I had 2 comments. Let me explain. I don't like the button combinations inputs of fighting games. That's why I prefer Smash. But that being said, I'm still trash in fighting games, but I love watching people play them. That's a kind of a tough thing. A lot of the button combos are pretty complex, and you have forward and quarter circles and dashes and lefts and rights and inputs and a lot of precision movements and multiple buttons, and there's a lot to it. And not that Smash Brothers isn't intricate, but it's simpler enough to pull off the meat and potatoes: up, down, left or right, and B or A, right? Now there's a lot of depth in hit detection and in sliding across and diving into the background. So it's a very different type of sophisticated fighting game, but I definitely know what you mean. Hey, they are doing announcements at the Capcom Pro Tour event. Oh, very good. Thank you for letting me know. We're going to have to check that out because nothing is happening right here. Let me go to Capcom themselves. We got some Game Award stuff. All right, anything from Capcom themselves? Nothing yet here. SF6 has been announced. Well, we gotta see Capcom. We gotta see this. They're announcing it on Twitch.
This February, watch your favorite streamers go head-to-head in heart-stopping, pulse-pounding competition featuring 2 world-renowned athletes. TurboTax Expert
this ad is killing me.
next week on Twitch.tv. With 20K on the line, you won't want to write this one
Thank you
off.
for letting me know. This is breaking news. Capcom Pro Tour will return. So is that it? Is that the end? No opportunity to rewind. What exactly did we miss? That's just a volume slider. So Street Fighter 6 apparently has been revealed, but they didn't update this timer, which is odd. Will return like in a few minutes. That seems to be the end of that. On their official website, we're not getting anything. We got these cool pieces of art. But yeah, we're at February 20th and we're scrolling down here and they don't have it here. So I'm going to check back, I should say, and see. Oh, here we go. Okay. Street Fighter 6. It's official. Street Fighter 6 is on the way. So I knew last year, because Capcom said it, it was publicly stated that Street Fighter 6 would be mentioned, revealed in some capacity in 2022. Whether it would be officially shown, just talked about, gameplay, otherwise, information on Twitter. Yeah, I found this. This is on Capcom Unity, which I'm actually on and have been a part of in the past for various projects and whatnot. This is good. This is good. Trailer. Oh.
All right, you ready?
Wow.
Street Fighter 6.
Okay. That was cool. So we weren't quite live for that, but we got Street Fighter 6. Let's watch that one more time because now I'm a little bit more prepared for it. Street Fighter 6. One more time. Let's go. We've got the old school. We've got the new school.
All right, you ready?
Street Fighter 6.
Oh, awesome. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that it was officially shown. We got Ryu and Luke. Luke, the last character brought to us in Street Fighter 5 as part of that DLC. Let's see. At the Capcom Pro Tour. So I guess we found out about it here if you're watching with me live a little bit later, but thank you to bringing it up. The link, Capcom-Unity.com. If you go to Capcom-Unity.com, specifically hyphen, the little minus, that's the link to the trailer. Awesome. We know you're hungry for more details, and we're just as eager to share them, but we're going to have to keep you guessing just a little longer. Look out for more Street Fighter 6 news coming summer 2022. If we officially get this at E3, or if there isn't an E3, which we're still not 100% sure on, and just Capcom decides to show it off this summer, that's terrific. We have a compilation of 10 classic head-to-head arcade games launching June 24th, Capcom Fighting Collection. One more balance update coming to Street Fighter V. Awesome. Well, like I said, in 2021, we knew that Street Fighter 6 would be shown in some capacity next year. We knew it was in development. We knew it was coming. Didn't know when. We got the official trailer drop. This is awesome. I can't wait. It definitely looks cool from the first little bit of CGI. This is enough for me to comb over, to watch multiple times. I am stoked. It looks like it's not going to be 2D animated, nor did I think it would be necessarily, but maybe it still does take place in the future. Maybe it takes place after 3 finally. I'm excited. Thanks for watching with me. This is Paul Gale Network signing out. Capcom Fighting Collection has Darkstalkers. That's terrific news. So this is going to definitely need another video by me to go more in depth tomorrow. Let me know what you thought. If you were watching live, cool. What did you think of my Street Fighter 6 ideas, which were originally 5? And what did you think of the official Street Fighter 6 trailer? All right, PGN signing out. Thanks again.